Hello everyone. Now, a lot of you probably don't realise, because I don't think I've ever mentioned it before, but I am actually quite a massive Doctor Who fan. I love Doctor Who. I've got pretty much every single DVD. I think there's a couple I don't own, but I've seen every episode regardless. So I thought I'd just share with you my thoughts on the Doctor. So this isn't going to be like a top 13 of my favourite Doctors, or top 14 or top 15, depending on how you count them really, because there could be various ways of counting it. It's just, I'm going to go through the Doctors, what I think of them as I think of them. So starting at the beginning, William Hartnell, he's obviously the original Doctor. When Doctor Who very first came out, it was aimed to be like an educational children's program as well as entertaining. I think now it's more on the entertaining side and less on the educational side, but even so, he's supposed to be like this old wise man who's a teacher, but he's actually he's not the nicest of people. And in one script, I don't think the script ever went anywhere. He actually considered killing Ian and Barbara, the first companions he had, to hide his secret. Obviously, they didn't go with that. The show would have been quite short-lived if they did that. And in a way, he kidnaps them, to be honest. He's stolen the TARDIS. We know that. And he kidnaps Ian and Barbara instead of letting them go. And then he dumps his granddaughter off in London and leaves her alone. So you could say he's actually not the nicest of people, but he is a nice person. He just has different motivations for doing what he wants. He's, desperate to keep his secret, so which is why he takes Ian and Barbara away. And he wants his daughter to go off and be happy, his granddaughter, sorry, to go off and be happy, and feels that she can't be happy with him. Plus, the actress wanted to leave the series, but they could have thought of another way to get rid of her. So he obviously does bring a certain charm to her, and obviously at the time the kids loved him. And he doesn't always have the answer to everything, but it was obviously, even though he's playing an old man, he's still quite young in Doctor terms. And also talking about the age of the Doctor, there are many videos already on YouTube to speculate the true age of the Doctor, because his age does fluctuate up and down all over the place depending on which one you watch. So it's like so when he says how old he is, it's like how long, it could mean how old he's had that particular body. Otherwise, nothing makes sense. Anyway, there's other videos. Find them if you want to watch them. Then Patrick Troughton, he's more of a comedian. He likes to play the recorder. He's the first one that wore the bow tie. That's where Matt Smith got the idea of the bow tie from. He seems much more friendly, personable person, but he starts interfering with other cultures and stuff. I quite liked him. I thought he was really good, especially in like the Cybermen stories. He was really, he was like the first like hero Doctor, and this is where you first learn of the Time Lords and Gallifrey, because obviously he gets exiled down to Earth, which is when Jon Pertwee comes in, and he spends most of his time on Earth, and he brought some things into it that you never see anywhere else. He had his cars, his Who, I think the registration Who one, which he drove around. He really liked those cars. Apparently he used to drive them off set as well, just driving around as an actor. And I felt this was the first time you see someone who is actually caring and compassionate, and someone who really is invested in helping people. I felt, obviously the others were as well, but I felt that was more with him. And there's a lot of things you see in that one which they later reference in later time. I don't believe the Daleks are ever with him, or are they? I think no, maybe they're in one episode. Oh, I'm gonna have people telling me if I'm wrong. But I think there is. So he spends most of his time on Earth. So you got all of time and space, but no, he's Earth in the 70s. Then obviously he regenerates into Tom Baker, who was the Doctor for the longest time. And I kind of wish other actors would play the characters that long. Most of them are only really about 3 years, and he was in it, was it 7, 8 years or something? So his character really evolved over the years, and you saw a lot of companions come and go with him. I could do a whole other video about the companions, because there's been a lot. And he was the funniest, I think, so far. And he really made Doctor Who what it is today, I feel. He really, when people do like parodies of Doctor Who or dress up as Doctor Who. They're quite often, up until the recent era, they would always do his version of Doctor Who of the hat and the long scarf, which apparently was an accident being that long, but that's a whole other story. And he was the iconic Doctor for a long time, probably because he played him for so very long. So William Hartnell played the Doctor from 1963 through to Jon Pertwee playing the Doctor at 1974 would be 11 years. So that's quite a long time. Then Tom Baker comes in and plays the Doctor from 1974 all the way up to 1981. So that's almost as long as the other three put together. Not quite. But he really did make Doctor Who what it is today. And there's a lot of new storylines and features appeared with his Doctor, which then went on to be like canon in the future. So, and also he became like leader of the Time Lords. He'd gone from exile to their leader, so there's quite a transformation in the role. Then he regenerated with the Watcher. Never seen the Watcher before or since. I think they're just playing around with ideas of different Doctors. So some people claim that that's also a Doctor, which is why I'm saying it depends how you count it, because depending on how you count it, there are many versions of the Doctor. Obviously, Peter Davison's famous for the celery that would turn purple if a particular gas was present because he was allergic to it. None of the incarnations of the Doctor have been allergic to this gas, only him. So that's why he wore the celery. Yeah, he was an interesting one. He felt, I think at the time he was like one of the youngest ones to play it, and I don't know, I do like the Peter Davison era, but I can't really think much about it, to be honest. It's sort of, it was there and it was enjoyable, but I can't really think of anything apart from the celery that really springs to mind about his era. So obviously, yeah, I'm really struggling with Peter Davison. Oh well, okay, moving on. Colin Baker. This was quite a dramatic change, because obviously when Peter Davison's Doctor died, he saved Perry, and then he died and regenerated. So he was a little bit different. Right at the very start, you think, okay, he's a lot more arrogant than the previous incarnations. His contrast between him and Peter Davison is massive. And at first you think, oh, he's actually not really that very nice, but then you get to know him better and you actually realise that he is actually a good guy and he is trying to fight evil. His main storyline is the trial of the Doctor, in which he actually does quite a good speech about fighting evil and stuff. And this is where we meet the Valeyard for the first time. If you're only really familiar with the modern day Doctor Who's and your only reference to the Valeyard is from the Great Intelligence, and he says that he has the name Valeyard later on. What we learn in the Trial of the Doctor is that somewhere between his 12th and final incarnation, he is the evil. All the darkness and bad that's in the Doctor is the Valeyard. This guy is actually played by two people, is Michael Jaston and Jeffrey Hughes. I didn't think much of the Valeyard, to be honest. He's supposed to be this ultimate evil Doctor, but I don't know, I think they could have portrayed it much better. I suppose they're limited on budget and the audience, but he's supposed to be pretty evil. But yeah, it was a fair. I don't think they gave him as much of an opportunity to portray himself as they really wanted. Of course, what we do learn from that episode is when we're told between the 12th and final incarnation that he's always going to have more than 12 regenerations, even though the classic storyline is he has 12, and then you always know that all the way through. You got Matt Smith's Doctor, he's about to die, he's on Trenzalore, and then obviously if you see the story, he gets given more regenerations and then he moves on. So that was always going to happen. We learnt that back in the 80s. So that wasn't anything new or surprising. Moving on from Colin Baker was Sylvester McCoy. Now, he's actually my favourite Doctor because he's the one I used to watch as a small child. His character changed as it went along. He started out as like a comedian, quite jokey and jolly, and they changed him. And he never really likes being this fun character Doctor. And as the years went on, he's changed into a more darker and not sinister, but definitely darker Doctor, and more ruthless. He was originally supposed to have 4 years, but the BBC at this time were hell bent on cancelling the show. They reduced the budget right down. You can see that if you actually look at episodes from like even like from the 60s and 70s, they got better quality effects than the late 80s, simply because the budget just isn't there anymore. And having to work with next to nothing, they moved the show from a Saturday to a Wednesday. They were doing everything they could to kill it off. The head of the BBC just didn't like Doctor Who and wanted it gone. But JNT at the time, who was the producer, John Nathan Turner, he really had visions and ideas of where he wanted to take Doctor Who, and there's subtle hints about it in the story. And the Doctor's supposed to be much more than just a normal Time Lord, and he's supposed to be much more powerful. But they never actually managed to bring that to fruition. Also, there is a very subtle reference that Sylvester McCoy's Doctor knows about the Time War. There is speculation that that was already known about, because you never really hear about that until, obviously, when Christopher Eccleston comes back. But there's very subtle references to the Time War in Sylvester McCoy's era. So it might have been that they were already planning on that, or it could just be a coincidence. But the hints are there. And I really like the way the Doctor became, because he was very caring and compassionate, but at the same time, you know, he had this much, much darker side to him, which later Doctors then used. Up until that point, they never really had that, but it did come across. And then, obviously, after that's Paul McGann. He was only been in 2 episodes on screen, but he did loads of audio episodes, which are considered to be part of the main storyline. So, obviously, he did the 1996 film, which is good. It's also a little bit daft as well, the storyline, the world's going to end at midnight in the millennium. It doesn't account for time zones around the world, but anyway. So, and also in that one they say he's half human. They never mention that before or after. Stephen Moffat has also even said he is fully a Time Lord. There's no human in him. That is just, so let's forget that ever happened. Apart from that, it's actually a very good film. It's a little bit cheesy, but it's set in New York. This was originally supposed to spawn a new series. That TV film was supposed to be the catalyst for its rebirth, but it just didn't happen for some reason. So again, it went quiet again until it eventually came back with Peter Eccleston. Now, obviously, in between, we're thinking what's happening. Paul McGann's done loads of audio episodes, which are classed as like official episodes, but where is he? So you don't see his regeneration until Night of the Doctor on the internet. Obviously, he regenerates into John Hurt, and obviously when you see Paul McGann regenerate, you see a young John Hurt in the reflection. He becomes the War Doctor. You don't obviously get to appreciate much of him because he's only in the 1 episode, but I thought he portrayed him well. He's supposed to be this really, hardened War Doctor, but he seems just downtrodden and downbeaten to me. So obviously he's been in the war for a long time, because when you see him at the regeneration, he's young. They show a young image of him, and then by the time it goes on the Night of the Doctor to Day of the Doctor, he's much, much older. So you can imagine he's been a warrior, and now he's just at the end. He's worn out, he's beaten up, and he's had enough, which is why he's come to the conclusion that he just needs to kill everyone. And I thought he played the role quite well. Obviously, trying to portray someone that's been in this war for who knows how long in just 1 episode is quite difficult. I think he did quite a good job. Then obviously you got Christopher Eccleston. He was actually one of my favourite Doctors, because he was good at playing the comedian, but he was also really good at playing the really dark, serious side as well. And you see some of the darkness from Sylvester McCoy's Doctor in there, and he's kind of rolled with it. Obviously he left due to creative differences, which is a shame, because he would have wanted to stay on. He's admitted that now. It took him a long time. But funnily enough, Colin Baker's Doctor, who wear that ridiculous coat, he actually wanted to wear something like what Christopher Eccleston wore, but they gave him this stupid costume. But anyway, so the Doctor finally got the costume, just different actor. So you see, he's just come out of the war. He's just regenerated, and he's a shell of himself. So obviously Rose has to like help him find himself again. But he doesn't last long. Then you've got David Tennant. Now, David Tennant, I felt, was a very good Doctor, but I felt what let him down was his script. I felt that the way Russell T Davies wrote the storyline for him and did things, I just didn't think it really works. I felt, you've got poor old David Tennant. He's acting his heart out. He's doing the best portrayal of the Doctor he possibly can. And he's got dud scripts. Most of it is just like him trying to say stuff and going, "Will you listen to me? Why won't you listen?" And people, and he's just trying to do everything just by yelling at people. And it's not his fault. It's the scripts. And also, what really bugged me about the Russell T Davies is that every time he wanted to explain something, he cut away to a TV news thing, and it's like, why are you doing that? No one's done this before you. No one's done it after you. And it's just. It just is unnecessary. So I felt he was let down. But other than that, I thought he portrayed the Doctor really well. And I actually really liked him as the Doctor. I just thought he was let down by poor scripts. The stories themselves were good, but it's the scripts within the stories weren't very good. So when I say poor scripts, I don't mean poor stories. I actually really enjoyed the stories. I just felt they could have been scripted better. Then Matt Smith, I actually liked Matt Smith. Okay, the youngest person to play the Doctor, but I thought he was very good at playing an older person. I felt his portrayal of someone that had been around a bit. He was old, he was worn out, he was sad, he was lonely, he was missing people. I felt he portrayed that well. But he also had a silly side to him, which I really liked, which was obviously taken back to the Patrick Troughton days, which is why he wore the bow tie. And I really enjoyed that. Matt Smith was emulating Patrick Troughton quite a lot in that, as well as playing like a much older version of him. So he had the silliness, he had the bow tie, and he also had the very serious side to him as well. So I really enjoyed that. Then obviously Peter Capaldi. Yeah, I liked him. It took me a little while to get into him, but I'm sad to see him go now. Obviously, he's been a massive fan of Doctor Who right from the very beginning when he was a child, and to actually play the Doctor is like a dream come true for him. I thought he might play the Doctor a bit longer because when he got the role, obviously he was going on about how he's always wanted this, and he used to write to the Axis. So I thought he would stick around a little bit longer. So I'm surprised he's gone as quickly as he has. But no, I thought he played him really well. I wasn't too sure at the beginning, but then as he got into it, he's really developed the role and made it his own. And I really do enjoy watching him as the Doctor now. So obviously now we've got Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. I think she only had one line in the last episode before she fell out the TARDIS, which was brilliant. She's got quite a thick accent, so I don't know how some people abroad might deal with that, but I'm okay with it. I'm actually looking forward to seeing her. Obviously, they've been preparing us for a long time for the idea of a female Doctor. You've got the episode Curse of the Fatal Death, written by Stephen Moffat back in 1999, although this was supposed to be a parody episode. This is the first time you ever heard the words never, cruel or cowardly, and obviously a lot of other things which he put in that spoof episode he then put into mainstream episodes later on. But this is the first time you see the Doctor regenerate as a female, portrayed by Joanna Lumley, but obviously that's just all a joke really. But then obviously later on you learn that Doctors can regenerate between man and woman, which you see in the episode The Doctor's Wife, when he talks about one of the Time Lords regenerating as man and female. You then see it again in, well, obviously you've got the Master regenerating as Missy. Then you see it in the 50th anniversary special where one of the Time Lords, what's his name, forgotten his name, he regenerates as a female. So they've been preparing us over and over and over and over and over again. So I mean, it was obvious it was coming. So I think she'll be all right. I'm more worried about Bradley Walsh being in it, to be honest. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the Doctor. So I can't pick a favourite. So if I was absolutely forced to, I'd probably say Sylvester McCoy in his later years, when he becomes more serious and dark. Possibly Tom Baker, just because he's so iconic, and I quite like Christopher Eccleston as well, mainly because he just brought it back. But yeah, I like them. I like them all. I can't really pick a favourite. I mean, I would say I like Paul McGann, even though he was only in it for like one main episode and then one short episode. But there are so many reasons for me to like each Doctor, and so we'll see what Jodie Whittaker is like. I'm sure she'll be fine. I'm not worried. I'm not even slightly concerned. There's such a lot of people like going, oh no, the Doctor can't be a female, even though for years they've been preparing us saying actually no, they can. So yeah, that is my thoughts on that. I was thinking about doing a whole second channel just reviewing each episode. I don't know if I'll do it. Well, basically going to go back to the very beginning, watch each episode, and then do a review about it, because as I said, at the beginning, I've already got almost every single episode. There's only about 3 or 4 episodes that I don't own, but they'll be easily enough to get. So I don't know if there's a demand for it, that I will, but there's already so many Doctor Who channels out there. I would be in a crowded space, so we'll see. Anyway, if you like this, give me a thumbs up or not. Don't know, it's up to you. I can't force you. I can't physically go around your house and make you click on the thumb up icon, but you know, do what you like. All right, bye.